All right. Hello and welcome everyone. So today is going to be our sixth session in this series, AZ-400 exam. Uh, so this is the training that we are taking for AZ-400 implementing DevOps, certification in Azure DevOps, and this is our sixth session. And today we are going to cover this develop an instrumentation strategy as a part of this training. Now, before we get started with this training, we will go ahead and discuss few things about our team and this exam. So this is the core team that we have who are working behind the scene to, to make this happen. They are, some way or other way, they are involved in either preparing the slides or setting up the session and all those things. So Vipin Jha is a consultant and a Microsoft certified trainer who is helping us behind the scene to set up all the content that we are trying to present in all the sessions. Ram Murthy is another core member. He is also Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft Azure architect. He is based out of Bangalore, and he is also working and helping us to make up all the content. Then myself, Ashish, I am also Microsoft certified trainer as well as DevOps architect. I primarily work in the area of DevOps, and I'm taking the sessions, all the sessions of Azure DevOps. We have taken so far 5 sessions. This is our sixth session, and we still have 2 more sessions in future for this training track. Shri is a Microsoft certified professional. He is based out of Canada and working and helping us to make up all the content and suggesting us all the feedback and also setting up all the things in the background. Kritika is cloud engineer based out of Delhi. She is also helping us with all the content that we are trying to build up, and she is also helping us all the messages that we are spreading in the community, in the social media, and also in the group. Nitanshu is also one of the core team member. He is also Microsoft certified trainer as well as cloud consultant. He is based out of Delhi, and he is also helping us make all the content that we have, and he has taken a few of the sessions in past of Azure DevOps and Azure Administrator track. So these are the core team members that we have who are working behind the scene. Apart from this, today, I'm going to take the first part of the session where we will be discussing about the theoretical aspect of this particular module. And Sanjeev will be helping me to conduct the lab in the second part of the session. As we do, we are going to announce the Azure free exam voucher winners. So, and also we will be opening up a quiz in the last of the session where we will be, you can participate in the quiz, and after participating, we will be selecting 6 winners, and we will be distributing the free exam vouchers in the next session. So today we will be sharing the vouchers for the winner that we have selected from the previous session, the last session that we had. And for the today's quiz, we'll be selecting the winner and we'll be announcing in the next session. One important thing that we come across is, we just try to highlight that these vouchers we are getting for India region. So, you will be able to utilize these vouchers if you are availing them in anywhere in India. So this is one of the important aspects that we have. And when you are participating in the quiz, we want to request you to also register on Eventbrite page, because when we are selecting the winners, we are actually matching up the people who are also registered on the Eventbrite page and who those are taking the quiz. So we are selecting the winners from the set of those people who are whose email IDs are on the both the platforms. Winner will be announced in the next session. So we'll be announcing the previous session winner this time. And if you will be participating in today's session, then you will be, if and you will be the selected winner will be selected in the next session that is going to happen on 27th February. We will request you that if you are, getting any benefit out of these sessions, in any the things that we are trying to do, the trainings or any past training, or if you have been able to clear any certification, or it has been helpful for your acquiring the knowledge, or it has been helping you to get the certificate, we really ask you to please mention us with these hashtags so that we can track and we can probably post it on successful user stories, as well as it will help other people to refer the content that we are trying to, you know, present, and it will help other people to refer the content after, reading the feedbacks that you have. Any positive feedback, any negative feedback, all are welcome. We will definitely request you to join our group. We will be posting the group link in that comment box there. Please join us and give us any kind of, feedback that you have, and we will definitely try to incorporate those feedbacks. But yes, if it is helpful, then please mention so that we can get to know that what are the things we can, we can improve on, and what are the things that are actually helping different people. Now, today's session is about DevOps track. So we are going to take this exam track AZ-400. Now, talking about AZ-400, this track has few, a path that you need to follow. That path is, let me show you. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so the path is, you need to, go through this one of the prerequisite, either AZ-104, that is Administrator Associate, Azure Administrator Associate, or Azure Developer Associate, that is, 204, and Azure Administrator Associate, that is AZ-104. So any one of the exam that you have, and then if you take AZ-400, for which we are taking the training, then you will be eligible to get the badge of DevOps Expert. Having said that, it is not mandatory to only have the AZ-104 or 204, then only consider the AZ-400 exam. If you are someone who is only looking for passing the exam of AZ-400, that is the exam or the curriculum that we are going for, you can definitely take the exam AZ-400 without taking any one of these, but you will not be getting the badge of it. You'll be just getting the scorecard of this exam. So you can take this exam, but getting the badge will be possible if you have either one of these exams. So you can plan them either first going through one of these and then going through this, or you can plan vice versa. You first go through AZ-400 and then probably you take another exam, one of the prerequisite based on your preference, and then you get a badge. This is the thing about this exam. Now, talking about AZ-104, that is administrative track, we have already conducted a training, and you can refer our YouTube channel. If you just search AzureTalk, you have a AzureTalk YouTube channel. There we have the, we just recently, few months back, we completed the free training for AZ-104, and you can refer that playlist, and you can actually go through all the topic that you need to cover as a AZ-104. Talking about AZ-204, we are soon going to launch the free training track, for AZ-204 as well. As soon as we will finish the AZ-400, we will soon launch the information and schedule when we are going to conduct the AZ-204 exam. So that is it. So if you are planning for the complete exam, then you can actually, refer our YouTube channel, and you can get all the content that you want to clear the exam, all the 3 exams, and get a voucher and get a DevOps certificate on your resume. Now, on top of it, as we have discussed, we are also going to help you with the exam voucher. So it is like we are also giving the content as well as the exam voucher. If you are one of the lucky one, then definitely you can clear all the exam with the with the knowledge that you can get it from the YouTube of on our YouTube channel, as well as if you can get the voucher from our session if you're visiting all the sessions in our previously and also in upcoming future. Now, talking about these exams, let's talk about what exactly this exam demands. So this exam demands these modules that you need to cover as a part of your learning. So we have already conducted sessions for facilitate communication and collaboration. We have already conducted session for manage source control. We have already conducted session for define and implement continuous integration, and all other things. Now, today we are going to cover this develop an instrumentation strategy that covers 5 to 10% of the exam weightage. Prior to all these, all those prior modules has been already covered. And if you have not been able to attend these session, we will recommend you to go to our YouTube channel and refer those previous sessions, then, to get the knowledge on those other modules. Once, in upcoming weeks, we will be conducting the session for the next 2 modules. So that is we still have 2 more sessions in future, one for site reliability engineering and another was one, the last one for security and compliance. Now let's talk about today's agenda. So today we are going to cover, the first thing is design and implement logging. So what exactly, why do you need log? How do you design your logging strategy? I mean, what are the things there in Azure and how do you do that with Azure DevOps? The second thing that we are going to talk about is what are the telemetry that you are going to track in terms of logging. And then we will be looking into some of the the integration option that you have in terms of monitoring and logging. So talking about design and implement logging, the first thing that comes into mind as log framework, that how do you actually, why do you want to have the log? I mean, why do you want to track a log? What exactly you want to do with the logs and how do you do that? When you talk about logging or monitoring, just like we have continuous integration and continuous delivery, we have conducted the sessions dedicatedly for these topics. We have something called continuous monitoring as a part of DevOps practices. Now, what exactly continuous monitoring says that if you are continuously, if your CI pipeline is continuously building the product, so you have the code generates, code gets added to the CI pipeline, it generates a package, then package gets into the CD pipeline, and then you deploy it to the server. Now, suppose this is your server. If you are kind of following this, but this is not the end of the, the cycle. Once you deploy this in the server, you definitely have to know that how this server is, how these updates, when you send an update, suppose earlier it was version 1.1 or maybe nothing. And then when you deployed version 1.2, then how this version 1.2 is performing, whether it is, whether the users are getting the values that are expected from them, if they are able to access the pages, the features that you have introduced as part of this version release. So all those things you need to monitor, and you need to monitor it continuously, so that as soon as you see some information over here that, okay, we introduced a feature 1, F1, but users are not using it, or maybe when users are clicking on it, they are getting a 404 error, or maybe when there are more than 400 users, then this feature 1 is kind of not stable. Any kind of situation may arise. All these things you need to continuously monitor, so that you can send it back to your developers or operations about the behavior that is happening. These behaviors may happen because of application issues, application bugs, right? When feature was introduced, F1 was introduced, it was, it was buggy. The code was not handling all the situations. Or it might be related to operations, where operations has not configured this server as per these feature expectation. So suppose this feature expected that the server must be having must be scaled up with a RAM of, like, earlier if it was 2 GB, then suppose this feature, because it is right too much memory consuming, it may be expected that the server must have 4 GB RAM, because a lot of users are going to use this feature. And because of some communication gap, if operations was not able to take up this scale option, or maybe the developer itself has not communicated well, or may have not did the proper planning, that if at all this feature will need a little bit of scaling on the infrastructure side if we are going to deploy. So those kind of feedback, we call it feedback, you get if you do the continuous monitoring. If you don't do the continuous, if you don't look at your servers continuously, if you just handle your CI and CD and just sit down there and then you just wait for something happens, then it will be very difficult for you to to calculate what are the what are the peak hours, when are you going to plan this scale up, when are you going to scale down, and how the users connectivity with this application or users usability with this application is changing. All those things will not happen, and continuous improvement may not have proper feedback because you are not continuously monitoring. So that's why one of the when you are looking at continuous monitoring, you have to look at from the point of view that you need to have the continuous feedback, and that can be only possible if you are following continuous monitoring framework in while implementing logging. While you are talking about monitoring, as we have discussed, you have two types of log. One is application monitoring, that is your application itself might be having some matrices that you want to track, if all the pages are loading at within this much time, if all the any of the pages are giving 404 error, all those kind of application specific monitoring. The second monitoring you would like to do is infrastructure monitoring. What changes are happening on the infrastructure side? Who is doing it? If some machine is scaled down or scaled up, how it is happening? If it is happening with the automation, or if it is done by some person. If CPU is able to match up the expectation, if we are getting a high CPU uses error uses in the monitoring, if we are getting low RAM issues, all those kind of infrastructure is specific things you need to monitor. So when you talk about continuous monitoring, you talk about application monitoring as well as infrastructure monitoring. Now when you want to set up the monitoring and set up the monitoring for application or infrastructure, you need a log storage place, because your application will continuously keep sending the logs, whether these logs are for any error or they might be just for tracking some matrices or any kind of things. So you need a solution to implement the storage strategy, so that you can you can keep them at place and you can further analyze them using some tools like Power BI or some other analytics platform. So you need to have a streaming process in place where application will continuously send their logs, send their information about their running state, about their changes being made from the on the platform side whatsoever. So there you may have to look at one of the solution in Azure, that is log analytics. Log analytics workspace lets you capture the logs from multiple platforms or from multiple applications, and send it to a central location or central place, and then you can further analyze it using some using some tools like Power BI, or within the log analytics workspace itself, you can query it using the query language that we are going to talk about in a bit. So you can do that, or you can implement Event Hub. So Event Hub is a a kind of a event based mechanism to capture some information. So whenever some information is being streamed by the application, you just pick that particular information and send it back to some other third party application. It can be, it can be within Azure, or it can be outside Azure, or it can be your custom application. So you just keep listening the information that a platform is sending, the platform as in our case, application server or application itself. And you just, you know, take that information and pass it further to the next application to take action. Maybe it can be action, maybe it can be based on, you may want to run some query based on the information that is being passed using Event Hub, or you may want to do some automation based on the information that you're getting. You might implement that. You get some information, some log, some trigger happening from the virtual machine or from web app or from some other platform, and you just want to make sure that some action will be taken care in the backend. So if someone does scale up on the virtual machine, you may want to run a Azure function to validate if that scale up was a valid operation for that virtual machine. You might not want to allow such information, or you might want to allow a particular type of scaling. All those things you can do if you follow a event based mechanism, where you can subscribe to a event or subscribe to a log into a platform, and then you can actually take action based on that. The third thing you can do when you are when you are designing your log framework is you can take information from various platforms. It can be virtual machine, it can be Azure, it can be Azure platform specific things, specific things. I mean, you can take any log that you're getting, and then you can put it on a Azure central Azure storage account, on a blob storage, and then you can further use this information into your custom application or in any event analysis application. So you can either use log analytics workspace to centralize your logging mechanism, or you can implement an event based approach using Event Hub, or you can use a storage account to keep all the logs at a central place, and then whatever you want to do, you can do that with that particular log. Once you have the data, you either can use a analysis platform from the Azure ecosystem itself, such as Power BI, or you might be interested into further doing some processing, some ETL jobs, where you clean up the log that you are getting, and then maybe further you visualize it some other visualization tool, or maybe you will be reusing it in some other application, third party application or some application from the Azure itself, to visualize it or take action on it. So you can do any one of the way to manage your log strategy. How do you want to store your log, where do you want to store your log, and how exactly you are going to get the log. Now, talking about Azure, in Azure, there are few logs type that you may want to take consideration while you are kind of dealing, or you are trying to design the way you want to store your log. One of the log type is activity log. So when you do any changes in Azure on the platform level, so suppose you created an Azure virtual machine, you resized a virtual machine, you did some action on a resource, maybe a web app or a SQL, you change certain properties. All these are platform specific logs on the Azure, on the activity side, and these logs are called activity logs. Now, you need to you may be interested in looking at these activity logs to kind of audit, or to kind of keep a track where exactly who is doing changes and what kind of changes people are doing. So these are the logs. I mean, activity logs are the logs which will be helpful to tell you that what are the things being changed on the Azure platform level, such as who is doing something with the Azure VM, some configuration change on the VM level in the Azure, if they are changing some size, if they are changing the, some other information, or if they are creating some resources in Azure, who is creating what, who is deleting what, all those kind of information will be possible by looking at activity log. The another type of log is resource logs. So resource logs are like, when you create a virtual machine, the resource, the virtual machine itself is called resource. Now, virtual machine, who is creating the virtual machine, who is, what size of virtual machine is, all those are coming from activity log. But when virtual machine is running, then virtual machine itself generates some information, some logs in terms of CPU uses, in terms of RAM uses, in terms of its, any kind of error, in terms of its multiple matrices that virtual machine can have, similar to storage account, similar to other resources. There are resource level logs which tells you that how this resource is actually performing, whether it is able to kind of give you the information, whether it is able to run with the configured virtual, CPU, configured RAM, all those things. And those matrices log are called resource log. So when you are dealing with Azure, you are dealing with these two major logs type, and you have to create a strategy. You have to look at these two different types of log, to either you want to keep it in a central place in a single plane, in a single place, or you want to divide these two logs and keep it in different places. Because if you look at the types of log, activity logs tells you more about how, what are the things happening on the Azure level. So it might be a different audience who will be interested into looking at the what is happening on the Azure level. But if you look at the resource logs that are more specific to the resources, like, what is happening to the VM, if VM is running properly, if VM is throwing some error, if VM is able, how much CPU is being consumed in VM, how much RAM is being consumed in RAM, in a VM. All those information are very much specific to those resources, and there might be a different set of people who will need a little bit a different kind of insight from those logs. So you may have a strategy to put all these both of these types of log in a central place, or you may want to create a strategy where you put an activity log in a different place, in a different log analytics workspace, and resource log in a different place. So all those, you may want to put an activity log in a storage account and resource logs in log analytics workspace. So all those combination, you may have to strategize, create a strategy on that, and then you can proceed further. And you can, once you have the log, then you can do uh, different kind of things. Now, when you are dealing with multiple types of log, then there is a chance that you would like to have a central thing which can help you to accumulate all those information. And that's where this Azure Monitor comes into picture. Azure Monitor is an Azure service, platform as a service in Azure, which can help you to get the logs from all these different types of sources. You can get the logs from the applications, you can get the logs from operating system, you can get the logs from Azure resources, you can get the logs from Azure subscription, you can get logs from tenant, you can even get logs from custom sources. Custom sources like, it can be your on-prem solutions, or it can be a containerized solution, all those things. Now, once you get the logs, once you get the matrices and the logs, the log contains the matrices. Matrices means, the information that is coming, the data that is coming there, CPU uses, memory uses, all those kind of matrices. Once you have, you can actually analyze it on the Azure Monitor level itself. So you can have a log analytics workspace. There you can do some query and you can find out that what is happening there. But not only that, you can actually integrate it further, and you can get things done based on these logs. You can actually create some action on the logic apps. You can actually visualize it in the Power BI, or you can analyze it using the matrices analysis or log analytics. We will be talking about log analytics in a bit. So log analytics is a within the Azure Monitor, you have the log analytics workspace, and there you can do the query using a proper, using a different what you call SQL-like language they call Custo. So using Custo, you can do the analysis of your log in a very query way, and you can save those query. Based on those query, you can you can set up some alert based on those queries, and all those things you can do. You can even, as you can see, you can even set up some alert or auto scale based on the Azure Monitor logs. So you can you can create some alert as soon as something comes into the Azure Monitor. It should be doing something. There are multiple types of things that you can do with the alert. You can run, you can send some SMS, you can send an email, you can run a function app, all those things. Similarly, you can also run logic apps. So logic apps are, no code kind of a workflow where you can drag and drop and you can create a workflow that, okay, something happens, then you do this, I mean, something like that. So it is a kind of a serverless, solution in Azure where you don't really have to have a coding knowledge, but still you can create some program or some workflow where you can do certain things based on some trigger or based on some automation. So you can create a logic app to do certain things in a platform, to do certain things with some REST API, or in some external application using the logic app, because logic app has a lot of connectors. You can connect to different third party system, and then you can configure Azure Monitor to do action on those third party system using this connection, using this logic app kind of methodology. Similarly, you get various insight into various type of applications. So you can get the application specific logs, you can get the containers logs, you can get the virtual machine logs, and you can even get the logs or the information from various services in Azure, such as storage account and other services in Azure. So Azure Monitor is a kind of a central solution for all your log needs. When you are talking about Azure Monitor, one of the things that you come across is application insight. So application insight is used for attaching it with the applications, so web applications, and you can actually, configure the web application with application insight. Application insight is a resource in Azure. It's a service in Azure. When you attach a application insight with a web application, oops. So when you attach application insight within a web application, web app, Azure web app, then what happens is that it will start tracking the application specific logs, and then you can put this application insight logs into, you can look at this from Azure Monitor, of course, but you can also look it from the application insight itself. And then once you have these logs, you can configure web apps with application insight. You can configure your web services with application insight. You can even configure your background services, background jobs with application insight. You cannot configure it with any kind of external services or SQL. So you cannot really monitor a SQL server with application insight. But other than that, in application, in a web application, if you have APIs, if you have front end application, or if you have background services, you can configure your application insight to track the code level application logs, and you can put it there in a application insight resource, and then you can further set up alerts. You can visualize them in Power BI. You can even debug using Visual Studio. So Visual Studio and application insight has that integration that you can actually look at the application insight errors or logs, and then you can further take actions. You can even take action on the REST API, or you can put a streaming, you can continuously export the logs from application insight and put it somewhere else, from where you can take some other action. Maybe you can put it on a third party system where you may not want this Power BI to visualize it. You may want a third party system to visualize. So you may want to continuously export it into a system from where you can analyze it further. So this kind of things you can do with application insight. So you can configure your application insight with any web application running in Azure, or other places as well. And there are a couple of programming languages that are supported with application inside. What it does is it gives you a capability to even track application level logs into a central server, I mean central place. Now, when you are talking about web application nowadays, most of the web applications have their uh, adjacent, or I would say the alternate mobile application as well. So if you have a Facebook, then Facebook web, then you have a Facebook app as well. Now there is a service called App Center from Microsoft that helps you to track the crash report from mobile applications, or set up the CI and CD pipeline, or you can use App Center to deploy your application, mobile application into your respective mobile application store like App Store, iPhone iStore, I mean Apple iStore, or mobile this Android App Store. You can you can set up a CI and CD pipeline to deploy that, and then you can continuously set up a monitoring to monitor the crash report that are happening on various users, and then you can actually get the information that what type of applications are affected, which version of OS are affected majorly, and how many what type what version, I mean what version of OS is affected, as well as what are the number of users are affected and when are they getting affected. So all those dynamic reporting will be possible using App Center for mobile application. So App Center is just like getting the report for your mobile app, the way you can get the reports or get the information in Azure Monitor for your web applications, or your resources that are running in Azure. So when you are running your Azure resources, you can get the information from Azure Monitor by using various services like Application Insight, or the log analytics workspace and all. And at the same time, you can use App Center to track the logging of your mobile application deployment, where the deployments are happening, what types of user are facing issues, what version of OS has maximum errors or crash reports. All those things you can do with App Center. Now the next thing that we have is your how do you plan your telemetry. So what do you mean by telemetry is that, okay, you have made a decision that, okay, we are going to track the application uses, or the server based information. We are going to track the applications information. We are going to track the performance of our application. But what exactly to track? What is what is the fact or the value that you are going to track? That is what you need to design by using various information such as performance metrics. One of the thing is that you need to look at that what is the performance metrics that you have. How many requests that you are getting per minute. When you are getting, what exactly you must be, whenever you have an application, you must be having a number where you can tell that these many maximum requests I will be getting. If at all I'm getting more than that, that means my application might not work as expected, either on the application level or on the server level. So when you deploy an application, you have to have a performance metrics like what is the request per minute. Similarly, what should be the response times? So when a user requests your application, based on the application type, it might be that if application is responding within 3 seconds, then it's fine. But if it is taking more than 3 seconds, then it is not fine. I mean, it is not expected. The user might be kind of frustrated, or maybe this is not what user asked for. Or it might be possible that the type of application you are exposing, suppose it is a processing application, where when a user puts his request, there is a background process supposed to happen, and the user is aware of those background process, and he might have to wait for next 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get the result. So it is the performance, the response time will vary based on the types of application we are talking about. It is a very subjective information. It cannot be, it cannot be generalized. We cannot say that if any application is not responding within 3 seconds, then the application is slow. It's not like that. So that way you need to define your performance metrics in terms of response time, that how much response, I mean, what what exactly type of application is, and what is the response time your user will be okay with based on the application type. And of course you will be designing your application, the monitoring solution, keeping in this information in mind. Because when you are when you are monitoring your solution, your server, and suppose the application supposed to take 5 minutes to give the response, and suppose in the back end, in the monitoring solution, you have created an alert if a application is taking more than 3 minutes. So you are not aware of the performance metrics. You just you thought of that, okay, 3 minutes is a really very big amount of time for any application to respond. So if you set up an alert for 3 minutes, I think if the application is designed in a way that it's supposed to take 5 minutes to get the response, then every next response you will be getting an alert, which will be a false alert, because your monitoring is not, app up, is not designed as per the performance metrics. The next thing is the idle connection. So how many idle connection you will be kind of expecting? Because many times it happens that you have a kind of a solution and it is deployed and there are no active connections. So how many idle connection you are going to allow? Are you going to destroy any single idle connection to save some memory on the server or resources on the server, or are you going to allow these many numbers of connection that are not active? Service availability. This is also one of the important point, where just like response time, the service availability is also one of the very subjective area. When you say 24/7, that doesn't mean that every application is supposed to have 24/7. Suppose you're talking about an application which is used in India or US. Suppose it is only used in US. It is not used in any other location. No, and most of the user are corporate user, and they have been informed that this application supposed to be used during office time. So whatever the general office time in US is the availability time for you. So if the application is down after office hours, it should not be considered as a downtime, because service availability is not really 24/7. But contrary to that, it may be possible that you will have a 24/7 availability expectation from some application like Facebook or email application or some other application which are mission critical application. You may need service availability of 24/7, and if there is any delay in response, if there is a bad health alert, you want to configure that in your monitoring solution. So that is also one of the performance metrics that you want to track. Another is CPU utilization. So when you set up your server or when you set up your application on an infrastructure, you might be interesting. You might be having a kind of a very defined idea that how much CPU will be used at max. So I'm deploying a solution to which has two CPU and a number a number in terms of RAM like 500, 2 GB RAM or 5 GB RAM or something. Now I must be having some idea that two CPU, two vCPU, that means 70% of the CPU might go during the peak hours, but it should not go beyond 70%. If it is going beyond 70%, that's where I need to take action. I might have to say, set up an alert which can send an email, or I might set up an alert which will trigger a runbook, automation runbook, which will in turn spin up a new instance, or I might want to set up a kind of Azure function which will do something in the infrastructure. Or I mean, I want to do certain things based on the CPU utilization metrics that I want to track. So you want to track something that has to be defined in your performance metrics. Similarly, error rate. So not all errors are are to be considered as error, because sometimes you might see that there are few errors which are kind of expected, so you might have to define that as well. It's not, it is, of course it looks like an error, but sometimes it happens that since you have an agreement that this feature will not be used, we are still in progress, this feature is beta, so this particular error if happens, then it should not trigger an alert in the midnight, because this is a beta feature. So such kind of assumptions you should be having in terms of performance metrics, so that when you go ahead and configure your monitoring solution, you have these matrices correct. You know that this is what I need to track, and this is what I need to skip, or this is what I can be considered as a warning, this is what I will consider as a mission critical error, or this is what I need to prioritize it above everything. So all these things will only come if you have these performance metrics in your hand. You may also want to be you may also be interested into looking at the garbage collection in when any application like .NET or Java uh, trigger some exception, they trigger the garbage collector. So Java has the garbage collector, .NET has its own garbage collector, which kind of clean the memory, and then kind of do the application level exception handling. So you may want to look at those application specific, the application level garbage collection invocation details as well, that when is it invoking the garbage collector, and so that you can actually inform the developer to get the further feedback, so that they can incorporate the changes or the information that they need to uh, take care in the next release. The next thing is KPI. You know, performance metrics is something you take at in terms of this is this is the number I need to look at. These are the errors, or these are the priority. These are the CPU uses and all. Key performance indicator or KPI are the things that are defined in a in a very business language, you can say, or in a user specific context, that this is what, like for example, we have here is system health. Now system health can be anything, right? System health can be a CPU high utilization makes it a bad system health. RAM utilization or high RAM utilization can be a bad system health, or a particular error can be considered as a bad system health, or three of these services are working, then it can be considered as a green system, as a green signal for the system health. So application will be considered as system healthy, or uh, you know healthy or in bad health, based on the matrices that we have discussed, but it will be collectively form the KPI, that okay, this is the indicator of bad system, or this is the indicator of good system. How does how actually you are able to match the business expectation? So when you talk about application health, or when you talk about the application release, suppose you have released a version 1 or version 2. Now version 2 has a feature, has a feature release. Now that feature is working in some situation and is not working in some situation, and that is coming based on your monitoring solution that you have deployed. Of course, you will be monitoring it, and then you get to know that okay, for India users it's working fine, for US users it's not working fine, or maybe in daytime it is working fine, for nighttime it is not working fine. But overall, how progress, I mean, what are the benefits business is able to get it if you have deployed an application, and based on your monitoring, what are the the benefits business is able to generate? And if business is able to generate, then you can definitely go ahead and continue looking into your monitoring solution and keep improving. But if business is not able to make sense out of those features, even though your application is, suppose an application you have developed, and that application is always not working in the daytime, because in peak time it always crashes. it only works sometime if someone is using it in the night time, because there are very few users who are using it, and then the application is able to meet the expectation. In business term, this is a failure. Even though you will say that from the technical point of view that application works, it's just that we do not have sufficient memory, sufficient CPU and all. But in business term, it is a failure. Sorry. So this is another KPI that you need to monitor. And user satisfaction. No, end user satisfaction is also again not a number. It's not a something that you can gauge. It's like, you have deployed, you will look into the response rate. But response rate you will be looking at from the matrices point of view. But from the key performance indicator, it will just say that, okay, users are happy or not happy. If users are not happy because of X, Y, Z, any reason, whether it is because of availability, whether it is because of response rate, whether it is because of, application, the CPU utilization or whatsoever, it is a indicator for your application that those matrices will derive your KPI, that whether users are happy or not. Now your business will be looking at these indicator, or you will be looking at these indicator overall. So what will happen is that your matrices are defining the application uses, the application status, the application serviceability. The KPI will in turn tell you that whether those matrices that you're tracking are are actually meeting the KPI, are actually leading to a good system health, are actually leading to a business value generation, or are actually leading to a good user experience, or good a better end user satisfaction. IT is efficiency. So of course, if you deploy an application, and if it is like, it takes a lot of uh, what I would say, a lot of hard work and lot of kind of efforts to kind of make those changes available to the user, and still the efficiency is not at par, then of course your key performance indicator is not meeting up. When you are suppose you are monitoring your solution for its service availability, and to scale up in certain scenario, your IT team has to do certain manual things where they need to log into the Azure, and then they will set up a kind of a downtime, and then they will communicate to the user that, okay, there is a system issue for 2 hours, the system is not going to be available and we are scaling it up, and then they will scale it up. The efficiency is not there. IT is not able to match the expectation of the application in terms of automation, in terms of alert, in terms of availability, and all those things. So that is also one of the KPI for your application monitoring. Now you need to define measures. So you need to, when you want to kind of when you are looking at your matrices, and when you are looking at your KPI, that is going to define your key performance indicator, that these are the things that we need to make sure that is happening, then you need to define certain things. What are the things that you need to define? These are a few of the things that you may have to look at based on the platform that we are looking at. So yeah, if we are talking about infrastructure as a service component like virtual machine, you might be looking at the CPU uses. You might be looking at how much CPU I need to, I will need for this application, and how much CPU will define that this particular instance needs to be scaled. That particular, I mean, whatever alert, I mean, whatever action you need to take, whether you need to generate an alert, whether you need to take an action, whether you need to run a run book or whatsoever. This is one of the thing. The second thing, that is memory. Definitely CPU comes along with the memory in terms of infrastructure as a service. You might want to look at how much RAM this application will need. Some of the application will be CPU intensive, some of the application will be RAM intensive. So how much RAM we need? If at all we are exceeding the RAM, then how the monitoring solution will be, how the monitoring solution should be acting upon it. Whether we need a email, SMS, or a trigger to a automation runbook or whatsoever, so that we can meet the expectation of the application and we can meet the KPI at that moment. Disk storage. So as you know, when you set up your app VM, you might want a particular type of storage. And based on those storage, you might be looking at some numbers in terms of input output operations, in terms of its size, in terms of its performance, all those things. So you might have to define your disk uses in terms of its input output operation, or in terms of its size, how much capacity it has, how much space it has, all those things you need to define, and then you need to measure it in your monitoring solution. Network. You definitely will have to look at your network uses, how much ingress is going, how much outgress is going, because as you know, in Azure, some of the network is charged, some of the network is not charged. I mean, network traffic, I mean to say. So those traffic, those are chargeable traffic. How much traffic is going through? At the same time, your application might also have an expectation that I need this much network bandwidth to make it work properly. You might have a big data operations that is happening where when an application is operating, and that data operation is happening between your cloud, one cloud to another cloud, or maybe one cloud to a on-prem solution, on-prem server. Now, this traffic is going to have a bandwidth limit. You need to monitor that bandwidth limit. You need to look at that if at all this bandwidth limit is crossing, if at all my application is not able to get the bandwidth that it needs, what are the various ways that we have? In Azure, as you know, there are various types of networking solution that you have. You can have your dedicated network in terms of express route. You can have your dedicated, you can have your VNet, you can have VNet peering, different kind of strategy you can use so that you can meet the expectation that you need. And then, of course, when you are defining those properties using a proper, appropriate service, for example, express route, or a VPN software or anything, then you definitely want to measure it as well. If there is any kind of issues, any kind of error, any kind of downtime, you need to act upon it. And what are the strategy that you have? Definitely that monitoring solution will be able to kind of monitoring solution just tell you that okay, this is happening, and then you further go ahead and set up the alert. So when you are tracking certain things, if something goes wrong, if something, something is going not expected, you can set up an alert. You can set up an alert as an email alert in Azure Monitor. So you can set up, email alert to a particular team that okay, this is happening. CPU utilization is high. Something going wrong. You can please go ahead and check. This is a typical, legacy way of doing this. We have been using this particular type of alerting system all the time, that you get an alert that okay, things are not going well. Similarly, SMS, your Azure Monitor has the capability to send an SMS, of course based on some some limitation, and then you need to pay for it, and all those things are there, but yes, it has the capability to send you an email. Similarly, you can initiate a webhook. So so suppose something goes wrong with your application, and you want to, you want to inform this to a third party application. These days, many of the applications are supporting a way to trigger them, or way to let them know something to do with the way of webhook. So webhooks are nothing but a kind of a URL that you have. It will be a web URL, and as soon as something goes here, you trigger this URL, and based on this URL, this third party system knows what to do. So this kind of setup you can do. You can trigger a thing to Git. You can trigger a thing to Azure DevOps. You can trigger, you can set up a URL, and based on the technology we are talking about, that webhook URL can be triggered, and then you can do some actions on other side. Similarly, clean. Yeah. Similarly, you have Teams and Slack. So these days, chat ops is kind of a new term that people are using. This is what chat ops is. That when something goes wrong, you don't really go ahead and inform the operations or development with using some typical email or SMS kind of format. You send an alert in Teams or Slack itself, where people are logged in, people can see those alerts and they can take action on it. They can inform other people that, okay, this is something we are getting on Teams, can you please go ahead and look at it. MS Team has the capability to get the notification from various services. Azure DevOps is one of them. So you can set up Azure DevOps to get the notification about your build failure. Similarly, you can set up your monitoring solution to send some information into MS Team, and then you can act on it, what we call chat ops. Or last, you can do some ITSM integration. ITSM tools like ServiceNow have the integration with Azure Monitor. So you can set up a trigger to a ServiceNow application, and then ServiceNow will do action based on the definition. So when you set up a integration with ServiceNow with a defined template of instance or something, it will create an instance. And if at all you have made use of ServiceNow automation capability, it may do certain things automatically, or it may create an instance and inform the particular party or a group or an individual that, okay, this instance has been created and please go ahead and take an action on it. They may have to click on approval. They just click on approval and then some automation will work, or they might have to do some manual action based on the type of alert. You have to decide, but these are the types of things that you can do based on the alert that you are getting from the tracking of monitoring solution. So you have set up your monitoring solution based on your matrices and KPI. KPI defines your matrices. And then you look at uh, your definition that, okay, this is my CPU that I need to track and all those things. And then based on those definition, you set up the alert, and then based on the alert, you can do certain things. You can send an email, you can send an SMS, you can do the webhook, or you can analyze the log. So it's just not that monitoring solution will always have to kind of always have to send an alert or take an action or do some remediation. It's also about monitoring the solution even if it is working, so that we can improve it further. It may happen that your solution is working, but it is not working in an optimized way. Response time can be improved. uh, your application server is not really using a optimized configuration. You may have configured your server with 2 GB of RAM and 3 CPU. However, your application will always use less than 1 CPU and 1 GB RAM. So you may want to reduce it to that level so that you are not really paying more to the Azure. So that kind of analysis also you can do. At that point, you may want to integrate your monitoring. So talking about integration, the first thing is, as we have been talking about this Azure Monitor, we have seen that Azure Monitor gives you a kind of a very centralized way to look at your various kind of logs. We have seen that you can get all different types of log. You can do the different types of resources are supported. You can take actions on different types of things, and then you different types of resource type can be can be kind of customized or incorporated. You can actually integrate your applications using application insight. You can integrate your VMs, infrastructure as a service solutions like VM, into your Azure Monitor to track the VM specific matrices. Similarly, you can even monitor the containerized workload, or you can integrate with other monitoring solutions such as Grafana and other tools which are coming as a open source tools. So you might be using some other monitoring solutions, and just because you are using Azure, you might want to integrate them together so that you can see a central location, or you can look at things at the single place. You can do that using Azure Monitor, and that's why this Azure Monitor things Azure Monitor as an integrated solution makes sense for all the, for different people. Now let me look at. We have seen this one. Yep. Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor gives you the logs for Azure Platform Logs as well. So we have looked at it. Now there is another solution in Azure that is Security Center, which gives you the security specific recommendation in Azure. So when we are talking about Azure, we not only talking about application or resource log, but we are also getting security specific logs and security specific recommendation that how we can reconfigure the application in a particular way so that it is more secure, it is more optimized, and that for that you have Azure Security Center, which can integrate with your existing Azure resources and can give you a comprehensive look on your security aspect or security monitoring aspect of your application. Talking about feedback loop. So we have been talking about feedback loop. Let me talk about it again, that we have already discussed that why do we need a continuous monitoring solution? Because when you look at CI and CD, which is pretty much famous term for or a thing which is whenever you talk about DevOps, you talk about CI and CD. So you have CI and CD in place, CI and then CD, and that in that actually deploy the solution. But you have to keep looking at it, and we have already talked about that why do you need it, but you need to make some action on here based on the monitoring that you are doing, and that is what we call feedback. Now this feedback we have already discussed that this feedback cannot only limited to this, or it may be possible that the kind of feedback we are getting, it might be possible that we need to take care of those feedbacks in CD, or we need to take care of those things in CI, or there might be certain types of feedback which may be implemented on the code level only. So it might be possible that you are getting some feedback where application is crashing for one of the page, which cannot be, you cannot, really change the code in the CD place or CI. You have to make the code changes. Now code changes, you cannot really go ahead and, do it, instantly. You have to plan it, and that's where the different types of planning can take can take a priority. You can have certain things which needs to be fixed as soon as possible, and that's what you call hot fix, right? You may have to take some action on the code on immediate level, and that's where SRE team or the developers will be coming into picture, and they will look at the code, and as soon as they will create a hotfix and they will merge it into the main branch, and they will start the CI and CD process, and they will release a new version or a new thing that is incorporated with the feedback that you are getting. This is hotfix, but it might be also possible that you are actually able to take a feedback on the server itself using some automated runbook. You have a runbook configured here. This runbooks, this runbook is kind of is configured with these kind of feedback that okay, when CPU is going high, then I need to kind of do something on the server. So this thing you can configure, but it might be possible that you want to send this feedback to a third party system using event grid. Let me clear this up. So you might want to send you have this server. Let's think this is CD, this is CI, and you have this code level. Now you have got some feedback on the monitoring solution. Now you might want to send this information to a third party solution. It might be possible that the third party solution has to take some action on the server, or this has to inform some other third party to take an action because of this error, this alert. So this can be done with using event grid. You can configure this event grid to send the feedback back to to other system, or we have already discussed about ITSM. So ITSM integration is always possible. You can so you can always you can have the server, right? I mean, of course, CI and CD is already there. CI CD have already done the deployment. You have the server. You had the option, if at all, you can. I mean, you have the monitoring solution. You can directly take this feedback to the server itself by using some automated runbook or something. You had the option to take this feedback as a planned action in CI or in CD. So you plan, you create a user story or task to take it further, and in the next sprint or in the next release or maybe on the hotfix level, you make those changes so that this will deploy, and in the next deployment it will take care of this particular thing. Or it might be on the code level. This is already discussed, but sometime it may happen that it has to go through a approval process. It has to go to a team team C, and this team C has to approve. Suppose this feedback is suggesting that the server that you have has to be scaled up. It might be possible that this 2 GB RAM is not making up. It has to be scaled up to some other size. And that's where this Team C comes into picture, because you cannot really go ahead and scale up the server. You need some approval because this needs some planning. This needs some, in terms of availability as well as in terms of cost estimation. So this will go to a ITSM tool like ServiceNow. The ServiceNow will trigger the approval flow to Team C. Now Team C has an automated way of scaling up. That can be done. You have a script which does this thing, or it may be a manual process. It is up to the maturity of the team and the maturity of the DevOps adoption that you have in that company. I mean, and in that team. But these different types of feedback, you can send it back to the team. And these teams can differ. It can be a feedback for the developers. It can be feedback for the DevOps engineers, or it can be feedback for the infrastructure engineers, or it can be feedback for a third party system which needs to do some action based on the feedback. So this is all you can do with various approaches. These are the few approaches we have listed down which is possible using the Azure Monitor. Now, having said that, this is it for the monitoring. We are going to have a 10-minute break for this. Then after, we have a comprehensive demo, which is going to be demonstrated by Sanjeev. So Sanjeev is going to be demonstrating the monitoring performance, I mean application performance using Application Insight. And in that, he will be creating the Azure resources to simulate the performance. He will be deploying a web application, and then he will be generating the log artificially, and then he will be showing that how the application performance, you can look at it. How do you track the application performance? How do you create the alerts? And how do you make use of these alerts? So it is going to be a really packed demo session where Sanjeev will be demonstrating a lot of things that is happening on the Azure. So let's take a 10 minutes break, and then after 10 minutes we'll be coming back and we will be having a demo session by Sanjeev. In the meanwhile, I'll be opening Q&A in the chat, so you can post your questions over there and I will try to answer them. At the same time, I'll be posting our group link in the Q&A, and if we are not able to answer your questions because of time constraint, please post your questions in our group, and we will try to answer those questions in the group, if at all we are not able to answer all of them during the session itself. All right, so let's wait for 10 minutes, and in the meanwhile I'll be there in the Q&A. All right. So, Sanjeev, why don't you go ahead and share your screen?
So thank you, Asis, for sharing all the knowledge for the instrumentation and how to use the all the Azure monitoring services into your application. So I'll go ahead and share some insights into the how we can integrate the application insight and how it gives you a real view of the Azure portal and what is the benefits of using it.
Sanjeev, can you please share your screen first? Your screen is not visible.
Now.
Okay, yeah, it's on. Can you please minimize the teams? Yeah, yep, that's good.
I have taken one simple .NET application which I have forked into my organization, and this is a sample project which you can get it from the internet or you can create your own. So I will go ahead and create. This is a simple .NET application which uses the SQL Server as the database. So I'll go ahead and in the Azure, I will go ahead and create a web app plus SQL uh, resource. So I'll select this template and I'll go ahead and I'll name it as, let's say, demo AZ-400 web app. So I'll go ahead and I'll create a resource group named as demo AZ-400 RG. I will go ahead and create a SQL Server instance. So I'll name it as a demo AZ-400 DB, and I can the name called demo AZ-400 6 is the database name, and I'll give the username and I'll give some password. This way I'm just creating a SQL Server instance. So you can see according to your application usage, you can go ahead and change the pricing tier. There are a lot of different pricing tier, like which kind of, if you have a high business demand application, then you can choose some business critical or hyperscale one. For demo purpose, I'm just using the general purpose one, and I'll go ahead and create the in the application inside, you can just give the name whatever you want. I have kept it as it is. So let's go ahead and create it. Scope, it will take some time to create the resources. So when you select this Web App plus SQL template, it gives you by default it gives you App Insight and the SQL template and the App Service template and the resource group template. So all these things are by default included in this. If you have an existing resource group, you can just utilize it, or you can create a new resource group, and in the template itself you can select the create a new resource group. So I didn't have any prior resource group which I can use, so I just created a new resource group over there. Deployment is in progress. Now I think we have all the resources which we wanted to create. It created four resources. One is for your app service, one is for your application insight, one is your app service plan, and another is your SQL Server instance. So most of the things like we need for the app service and app service plan, like we need it for hosting our web app, and the SQL Server we need to our database should be pointing it to the SQL Server instance. Then we have our app insight, which will be monitoring all our end-to-end tracing, everything for our application. So I'll go ahead and use this. If I go ahead, whenever you create an application insight, it gives you an instrumentation key, which is like your connection string, which I think most of people would have used in normal application lifecycle, which you can take it and uh, I'll put it in my web config. So normally either you can get it from a key vault or something like that for the best practices, but I will go ahead and I'll directly put it into my web config file. If you'll go ahead and see, I have a pipeline into my application, which is if I go ahead and release, I have a release pipeline, which whenever there is a build, it has a one task which deploy to my Azure app service plan. So here I have just authorized my instance so that it can deploy my Azure app service to my Azure app service plan. I think this part we covered last time when I demoed the how to create the pipeline and how to create your release pipeline, how you can do the like multiple stages of your pipeline in your release cycle. Like you can have development, QA, staging, and production, or development, staging, and production, whichever way you want. But I have just created a single release cycle so that it can deploy my application to the Azure App Service. So let's go ahead and check if no, it has not been triggered yet. Let me see. It's being funny. Let's see. I just changed the application insight key so that it can point to my the latest created application key, and also another thing. Here I have my connection string, which is I have named it as default connection string. So you can go ahead and whatever connection string name you have over here. So let's go. I need to change the variables, I think. Where it failed because I changed the variable name to something else. So I need to copy the app service plan name and put it over there. Source group name and the website name is the app service plan name. So that's where I did the mistake. And
So Sanjeev is still creating the resources, the environment you can say, for which he wants to monitor. So it's still
it is
going on for the setting up the environment.
deploying I can say it is deploying the web app which I have created into the resource which I have created now. So because I changed the variable name, so it was not correct. So the build was failed. So now I changed the variable name, so it should be fine. If you see here, it clearly said that it could not find the resource which earlier I had used it and I have deleted it. So that's a Now it is deployed. If we go ahead and just check the
Look at the configuration of the web app if you have updated the connection string.
And the connection string is good. Need to just rename the connection string name in the web app so that it can point it to.
Right. Should be in your configuration. Yes. Save it. Save it.
It's saved, I think.
You clicked on save. Yeah, now
Yeah.
you're saving.
No, it's already saved.
Okay.
Now it's loaded. The application is loaded. So what I need to do to point this web app to the to match the application inside key, I need to create one more key is called because the in which we have given is different. So we need to give this one here and the values like this. Is my instrumentation key. Now my value is there. Let me do some operations. Then we will see the all the data is inside the app insights. I think the app is a little bit slow, so that's fine. I think so. We have now used a lot of APIs, or we can say we have browsed through the application a little bit, so we can go ahead and check the app insight of my web app. So this is my app insight, which if I go, uh, if you want to go ahead and just go ahead and check, you will get all the request server request, which it is showing you that it got 6 server requests. If you click it over here, it gives you all the server requests which you got. It takes a little bit of time to to get all the requests into the app insight. I think it's like 4 to 5 minutes lag over there when you browse your application and you get the request, all the request context and everything. So it gives you a little bit, it will take like 4 or 5 minutes of time. By that time, I will show you what are the different parts of your app inside. So let's go ahead and check with the application map. So if you will see, your application map shows like how many instances of your application runs and how many calls has been made to your what are the calls it has made and everything. Like if you'll see, if I click over here it will give you all the details of your what are the slowest request by name, like the home/index and store/browse. It took around 8 seconds to perform. So all these information you get on the application map. So that's really a good view for how your application is communicating with what are the all resources like your SQL Server or your service bus. All these details you will find over here. So that's the good thing about one of the application map, that it gives you all the details, which are the slowest request and what are the response time. There are different techniques which we can use in App Insight to get the data. Like if something is failing and all this data, I will show you how if we'll browse some unintended path so that the API should fail, so that we can get the data over here. So that's one data which I just showed you. Then you can go to the smart detection. In the smart detection, if you do, it will gives you the what are the a potential performance problem in your web applications. So you can go ahead and do the settings over there. You can just send you can send your email notification to your slowest performance page. If any page is slow, you need to send an email. You can just send it, set it over here. You can send an email to your team emails or your own emails. So this is the smart application detection tab which you can use of the App Insight. Then we can go ahead and do the live metrics. So mostly this live metrics is directly connected to your application, and it gives you the real-time incoming and outgoing request data. Let's say you have multiple pods running. When we go ahead with the microservice architecture, let's say you have multiple pods running and you want to monitor all the CPU and usage, what are the health of if your CPU is getting like 60-70% more, all this thing. If you want to do monitor, you can monitor over here. It monitors multiple pods as well. Normally if you are going ahead with Kubernetes and Docker application, then you can use the live metrics as a very good tool over there to monitor all your pod health and everything. So that's one of the major thing which in Application Insight. Then we'll go ahead and we can use. Let's see if we see some performance. Yeah, so here is the performance tab which I was talking about. So if you can see in the performance tab, it shows you like how many requests you got for that for a particular API route. So there you can check what are the things that took time. It shows you all the details. If you have a microservice architecture, it gives you from which API to which API communication is happening, all this thing, and where this if it is communicating with a SQL Server or any external database or your service bus, all this thing it gives you over here. For entire one request, it drills down what are the dependencies are there. So normally App Insight monitors this in two ways. It always works on the thing called operation ID, or normally people call it as correlation ID. So whenever an App Insight logs into the operation, the first operation, it gives a correlation ID and a parent ID. So that's the parent ID which is used by the subsequent request. So if I talk about a microservice architecture, so inside microservice architecture, if my request context first hits any of the application, it sets the parent ID and the operation ID. So subsequent lines, all the telemetries are triggered by a request and dependency telemetry, which goes hand to hand. Let's say my API A is talking to API B, then API A sends a request dependency telemetry that I have a dependency on API B. So from the API B, when API B completes its operation, it sends a request telemetry. So you can say that Application Insight works on on the dependency telemetry and request telemetry orchestration mechanism. I'll show you in how in the code we normally, as a developer, also you can control all these things. Let's say you have a you don't have an application where there is a dependency and you don't have the request context propagation happening, like if you have a callback happening from a different resource, but you want to measure both the request in a single operation ID. How you can do that, I will show. So this is one of the performance tab which I showed. Let's go ahead and do some failure operations. I'll give category ID as 152. So this is a failure operation. So for this one, you can go ahead and check the failures over here. What are the failures has happened over here, so that you can go ahead and check. It will take some time to log the failures over here. As I told, application insight takes a little bit of time to get all the details into, because it whenever application insight doesn't push all single data per request into your application in application Azure monitoring, so it syncs the data in a batch manner, so it takes a little bit of time for that. So, let's wait for the failures. I will. Another thing application insight does is like your transaction search, where you can search the transactions, and it gives you in all the all the data in a grouped manner also, and all the results also. If you want to see in the grouped manner, you can see it in a grouped manner. So this is the way you can search the transaction. Like, let's say I want the event type only the exceptions, then it can. Till now I have not received the exception result, which I just hit the website. So you can define the exceptions, trace, request, everything. So let's say I want to see the request only. So I have, till now it is showing that request, 4 requests have 6. All this data it gives you. So if I go to the result, it gives me like I hit the category ID 3, category ID 2. This request was success, and if I see this request was a failure and the response time was 408 milliseconds, it gives you all the data. Let's see if I got the exception. Got one exception, so you can get the exception over here. So this is one of the feature of App Insight. Like, you can see the grouped result and a normal result view also. So if I'll go ahead and check the performance tab.
So as you can see here, Sanjeev, whatever the things Sanjeev is showing you, all these things matters a lot to application developers. So if you can see all the things that we are showing up right now are not only server related monitoring. So server related monitoring is quite famous among server users. But these things are being monitored on the application level, which can be traced up to the exceptions, as well as you can actually program it, because application insight does have a SDK and it has a accessibility with Visual Studio. So yeah, Sanjeev will show you further. So we just want to show you that this application insight can give you further details of application performance, not just the server performance.
That's what I'll show at the end, how you can use the application insight as an SDK, and I'll show a scenario where we use the application insights, custom application insights operations. I'll show that also. So if you remember, I did I knowingly I searched for a category ID which doesn't exist. So if you see that API failed. So if you'll go ahead and check what was the reason the API failed, and it will give you the exception. So it is it gives you all the exception, the stack trace and everything which your application has occurred. So this is the one of the way to monitor all your normally when you go ahead with microservice architecture, there is a lot of dependency happens because your service propagates with multiple requests. So you don't know which area it failed. So that's where the application insight monitoring works helps you. It clearly shows you that which API it has been failed. So this is one of the features which we have used in the application insight. Like you can see the your dependency where it failed and all this thing and which are taking more time. Let's say if I'll go ahead and take one example of one of the home index page. So here it shows like how much time each of your DB query took. So you can optimize based on your DB operations, like how your DB operation is taking, if your service is taking more time. So it's like during the performance of your application, it gives you a lot of insight. So let's go. Another thing which application insight gives you is the availability. So what you can do, you can check your availability of your application, and you just need to go ahead and need to add a test, and you just give the name of your app that demo availability. Test, and you need to give the URL to ping, and I'll give my application URL to ping. You can give the frequency, and you can see give the locations from where you want to ping, and you just create it, and it will create a test for you, and it takes a little bit of time to give you the result. So every 5 minutes it checks if your application is available or not. So this way you can check it pings application insight keeps pinging your application, and if it gets success response, then it shows you the success, and if it is down, then you can monitor it. This way you can monitor your pods also. So if you want to monitor your different pods, you can monitor it as well. But there are mechanisms in Kubernetes or Docker. They have their own mechanism to monitor the pods. So you can use the Datadog and other tools over there. So I think if you have a single application endpoint where you want to just monitor your web app, then you can use this availability. So then next we will go ahead. I think we didn't got it. Yeah. Now you can see that it is giving me all the results. So my from the EastView it is working perfectly fine. For South Central also it is working fine. So this is one of the way to check your if your web app is up and running. So that's the one of the way to check your availability of your application. So then we can go ahead. Let me go ahead and check the metrics. Here in the metrics, what you can do, it counts your event types. Like if you have a different event types, it gives you in the metrics you can just check it out, like how the count of events happening and all this thing. So let me check if I'll check the browser page load time, and it gives you a nice view of like how much time your page load is taking for your application. This one. So you can do that, or you can do a let's say I want to do the application splitting on let's say browser version, and if I'm using the Chrome, and if I use IE, it can give me like IE load time also. So all this thing you can do it from the application splitting. You can just use the browser version or authenticated user. You can do a lot of things over here. So like if you want to see for your data for country-wise splitting, let's say your application being used by multiple countries, like let's say India and United States or Canada, and you want to see the splitted result, then you can just check it like this, the country, and because I am using it from the United States, so it is just giving me this one. But if you want to use it from India also, if someone used it from India, then you can just check it out over here. So that's another thing of metrics. Then we can go ahead and check another thing called users. So if you see, and like you can, if you want to get the data based on a user centric data, like for which user, how many how much load time and all these things you want to see. If for some users it is taking some lot of time, then you can see those data. Or for some users, if they are having some common URL hit, then also it gives you that insights as well. So that's more of the usage of the app insight. And another thing is events. I can give you a lot of things are there, so you need to just explore most of the application insight facilities which are being given by, like in the last 6 hours it is showing me 6 events. So if you see, I have my page views because I browse the products and home page, so it is giving me 2 events. So if I select this one, home page, this event, like now it is showing me 10 events. So view more insights. If I do, it gives me like get home index and all this thing. And let's say you have a user flow application, like Assist gave a nice thing, like when you are using the logic apps, then it goes to your Azure function. And if you want to see those things also, you can nicely, it shows the user flows also. Or also, let's say in this application, my data goes from view to my API to my SQL server. For that also, it gives you those data in the user flows. Let's say I take an event. This is the event. It gives you like how it has been propagating from where to where. So this is the nice view for my home index page, from where it goes to where. It gives you the workflow idea. So let's say if you have a multi-level workflow where it talks to your Azure function, and you have logic apps, and you have SQL Server, lot of SQL bash services you are using, then it gives you all the insights over here. So this is the most of the things which application insight gives you. Another thing which I think I mentioned about for developer perspective, you can embed, let's say you are making an API call which is taking more time, and you just want to make it as a fire and forget mechanism, where let's say once the operation is completed, let the server ping you back that the operation is completed. So that way you don't have a request which is in a live state. So for that reason, you cannot monitor both the services in single transaction. So for that, if you want to see, I took an example of Azure Service Bus. Earlier it was not supported by Azure. Let's say you want to send a message to Azure Service Bus, and someone is receiving that message. So the request propagation was not happening. So what happens? It only tracks the sender in one telemetry and receiver in one telemetry. So for that reason, you need to, if you want to check how much time and the entire message took to get processed, then you cannot get a time for that. But now Azure has given that. But if you have a requirement for that kind of mechanism, like I faced that problem when I was using Service Bus earlier. So I did some changes to the application inside. So what you need to do, you just need to create a telemetry, which is called from the center side. You create a dependency telemetry and start the dependency telemetry operation. And you need to in the Azure Service Bus message head, you need to mention the parent ID, because when you create a dependency telemetry, it gives you an operation which has a parent ID and a root ID. So the parent ID and root ID are the main thing which application inside uses to stitch all the request operations. So you need to, from the sender side, you just create a dependency telemetry, and from the receiver side, if you see, you just create a request telemetry. So by this way, and you need to maintain the operation ID or the correlation ID same for both the instances. So this way, what it does, it correlates both the operation, and it gives you a data for end to end, like from how much time it took from the sender and from how much time it took the receiver to process. So it gives you an end-to-end data. So this is the way you can do it. So earlier Microsoft was not doing this. Now for the service bus, they are doing it. I'm not sure if they are using it for the other message queuing services. Service bus, they are doing it because it's their own product. So yeah, so that's the most of the thing application insight gives you, and there are a lot of changes you can do in the application SDK using in your application. So that's more of the developer perspective that I won't cover now. So I think in the 204 I will cover that if time permits. So I think that's not the way to cover it in 400 series. So
Yeah,
Ashish,
so here
that's it.
what we are trying to show you that definitely if you look at any monitoring thing, you definitely look at Azure Monitor and infrastructure aspect. But what we did here is differently, that we tried to cover the developer perspective in the monitoring, that at times that we miss that particular aspect of developers aspect into the monitoring. So we just touched upon that, how application insight can be helpful for the developers and the developer specific issues during the monitoring. And of course, we are planning the AZ-204. There we will be having a comprehensive developer oriented sessions. And of course, we will be covering this SDK in detail there. But yes, here our objective is to help you to familiarize yourself with the Azure application insight for looking into some of the matrices and some of the KPIs that should be applicable for application. We have already covered some of the infrastructure specific KPIs that with which Azure Monitor can help you, and the Azure resources like VM CPU users and all those things. But here we are trying to focus on the application specific things. Yeah, go ahead, Sanjeev.
So I need to cover another thing, that is alerts. So I think Ashish mentioned that you can create your own alerts, like you can send an email to your if something fails, you can send your email to your team, or you can hook with some webhook or like your Slack and team. So for that, you need to go ahead into the alert section. You create the new alerts. So here you need to add a condition that let's say page load network connection time or browser page load time. So you need to just use that. And you need to give the threshold value. Let's say I am giving it 2000 millisecond, my page load time. So this is the condition you need to give, and you need to create like an action group. So here, let's say you need to select this one, smart detection, and you specify the rule, and then you specify the rule name, and let's say page load demo. Let me go ahead and check over here. You have a lot of things like to create an action group and get demo alert. Notification type, you can select email, SMS, message post, and you can give the email ID over here. Let's say demo@xyz.com. So you need to give a valid email address, and you just do it, and you need to just provide a proper email address over here. I'm not giving it. So you can go ahead and create those things over here, and you need to just create the rules based on those action groups, and select it over here and specify the rule name and specify the rule description. I'll just specify it demo 400.
And these steps that you can see here over creating the alert, it is pretty much same for any kind of alert in Azure Monitor. So if you are creating the alert for Application Insight or Azure Monitor, you will get familiar with, you will get the familiar options there. Even you create for Application Insight or VM and other resources. Options may differ, matrices may differ a little bit, but yeah, I mean, you will be having the fairly similar kind of interfaces and similar kind of steps that you need to go through. Yeah, thanks, Sanjeev.
Yeah, so I have created the rules, so you can just manage your rule if you don't like anything. So you just delete whatever rules you want to delete. So from this, you can just, as Ashish mentioned, you can create the alerts to hook with your email service provider or your or anything else like webhook. All this thing you can do it over here. So I think it's the application insight is, I think it's the most neat and clean platform where you can use everything which it gives you. So it is not a lot difficult to use it. So yeah, from the development perspective, it's based on your development requirement, you can do it. But from the infrastructure side, I think we have covered most of the things. Yes, so I'm done with this. If anyone has any question, either they can put it in our Telegram channel, or they can, I think Ashish will provide most of the things which if you have any question, you can reach out to us and we'll definitely try to help you out. That's it from my side, Ashish. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Sanjeev. Thank you so much. So yeah, so we have seen that how do you use the application insight, how do you configure various resources in application insight, and various things in application insight. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will proceed with the next thing, that is the quiz. So let me first share my screen. And yep, so we have this quiz for today, and you can access this quiz by scanning this QR code or visiting this link. If you visit this link, you get an option, get few questions to answer. And I'm going to put this link here in the chat as well. So if you go there, AZ-400, you get any questions, and we are going to open this link for 10 minutes. So right now it's 21:17, so 9:17 p.m. in Indian Standard Time. So just 10 minutes after that, by 9:27, that is Indian Standard Time, we will be disabling this link. So let's go ahead and participate. Uh, the winner of this quiz will be announced on 27th of February, 2021. That is our next session in the same training track. So we have our next session on 27th. We will be announcing the winner, just like we will be announcing the winner of previous session today, just after this quiz. If you have not registered for the session, you can visit this azureeasy.com/az400 link, and you can go ahead. It will redirect you to the Eventbrite page. You can go ahead and schedule, subscribe to our future sessions. Uh, and again, we will request you to use our hashtag to mention if at all it is all these sessions are helpful to you, either clearing the doubts or clearing the certification, or if any way you think things are helping you, so that people will get to know, and then we we will get more people to learn, and then this will be a kind of a making a community much better. So this is it. So let's wait for next, I think 7 more minutes, and then probably 8 more minutes, and then we will be coming back. And in the meanwhile, I'm in there in Q&A. I'll be trying to answer the questions there. Right, I see responses there. We have 5 more minutes, approximately 5 more minutes. Okay, responses are increasing. Three more minutes. Almost there. 2 more minutes. And we have really good responses here. Yeah. People are still submitting the responses, and we have 1 more minute. Okay, so I'm going to disable this link now, and okay. So let me go to the next section where we are going to announce the winner of the last session. So let me open up this browser. And All right. This one, two. Okay. So here we have this list of people who joined us last time, and they did the quiz, and they are part of the Eventbrite attendee list as well. So from here, we will be choosing 6 people, and those people will be getting email from us for the vouchers. So let me go ahead and close certain things. Okay. Okay. So there's and yep. So let me start the wheel and let's see the first winner. All right. So the first winner is this email ID. Let me go ahead and find out who is the lucky winner. Okay, so the name is not appearing somehow. All right. Anyway, we'll copy this and paste it there. Oops. Okay. We'll be connecting with you on email. So let me remove this from the list. And the second one is this Anujit. So Anujit will be connecting with you guys on email in next couple of days. And all right, Kiran, copy this and remove all instances. And okay, and this is Girish.
As is, I think there are a lot of duplicate emails.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We'll see that if someone comes up again. Yeah, I
Because
think, yeah, I forgot to remove few duplicates.
people are asking if we can remove the duplicate and
Yeah. Let me remove this. I mean, I forgot to. I think this time I forgot to. Let me see if I am still seeing those things. Not anymore, I think. Yeah, all of them are removed. Okay. Yeah, this time I think I forgot to run that formula. Okay, so we have this another one. So how many we have? Two. Okay, so this will be the last one. Let's see. Okay. We will be connecting with you guys next week. I mean, anytime, before the next weekend, and we'll be sending you the vouchers for the AZ. So the voucher that we'll be sending will be applicable for India region. So please make sure that when you are scheduling your exam, your profile should be configured with India region profile. That is one of the limitation. The other limitation that these vouchers do have is these vouchers are not for fundamental exam. So you should be, you can definitely take AZ-400, but any other exam is also fine. The only limitation is that you cannot take any fundamental exam, that is AZ-900, and which is good in some sense because you can already get AZ-400 exam, I mean AZ-900 exam vouchers from some other places. But these are expert exam vouchers, and we are thankful for Microsoft to helping the community to learn as well as to uh, get the voucher. We have also posted, we are also going to send an email as well as we have posted in our group that you can go ahead and actually highlight your Azure skills on LinkedIn by going through a simple evaluation on the LinkedIn, and we are going to send an email about that, and that will actually help you to get highlighted on Azure, and Microsoft is actually tracking that information. So because that information is coming to us firsthand from Microsoft itself, and they want all our community member to follow that so that they can highlight those skills on the Azure. That people are learning from the community, and that is visible on LinkedIn. So, and that you already know that LinkedIn is the way to go for any kind of career progression and all those things. So we definitely uh, recommend you to go through those links in the email as well as in the groups as well. We are posting those links and follow the simple evaluation and get highlighted on LinkedIn. That's it. Now, so and yes, the winner will be announced in the next session that is going to happen on 27th February. Having said that, these are the few information that we have. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or Sanjeev. Sanjeev LinkedIn URL is there on the slide, and my LinkedIn profile is also listed there. You can also check out my website. But the primary thing over here is that you can connect with us on our Telegram group. Azure Talk is our Telegram group with more than approximately 10,000 people we are going to have. Right now we are crossing 9,000 members. Uh, we have Azure DevOps group to discuss anything about DevOps. We will be posting all the future sessions. We are, as we discussed, we are going to have AZ-204 session in future. So we'll be posting all the details in the group. And also these groups have a lot of people who discuss daily production issues, daily real-time issues there. So it is a really a nice way of learning the real issues, getting familiar with the real issues, and also asking queries if at all you are facing any kind of issues, and people actually are really generous enough to help you there. So you can connect with us on those group. You can ask questions if you are not able to ask questions during the sessions. We are not able to answer few questions during the sessions because of time constraint, because of all the constraint that we have in our online webinar. You can post it there. I will be there. Sanjeev will be there. We have so many other people from core team as well as it is 10,000 more than 10,000 people, approximately 9,000, something around 9,500 we already reached. So a lot of people are there working in different domains, different industries, and using Azure in different ways. So you can definitely get help from them, and people are really helpful there. You can watch all our sessions recording on our YouTube channel, that is Azure Talk. You just go ahead and search Azure Talk there on the YouTube. You'll be redirected to our channel. We have done a lot of sessions based for certification track, as well as some of the old sessions based on topic. So we have done sessions on networking. We have done sessions on Azure DevOps. We have done sessions on Active Directory. We have done sessions for uh, you know Azure storage, machine learning. So you can definitely go ahead and find out, follow the playlist and videos there, and get familiar with the concept related to Azure. With that, I will be concluding the session today. Thank you so much for attending us. Attending the session. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to, share some insight from us. If you find anything useful, please post on social media with our chat, hashtag, and let us know how you feel like about the sessions. If you need any improvement, if you think we can do a little bit better in certain scenarios, please post in our group channel. I mean, in our groups, Azure Talk or Azure DevOps Pro, and we will definitely try to improve on those areas in our next session. Uh, with that, let's meet next session, 26 February, and it's 26 February, right? Let me check. It is, yeah, I also forgot. It should be 26, 27, sorry. So it is 27th February, next session. Please connect with us on that, and we will be sending email and we'll be sending the post, I mean, group post about the next session as well. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much and
So,
have a good night. Have a good day wherever you are. Thank you.
yeah, I think feedbacks are most welcome, whether it's positive or negative. You
Right.
can reach out to us in LinkedIn if you have any question. We are always open to answer your questions. So if we can't, we'll definitely also improve our knowledge so that we can explore and answer back to you. So I think that's it from my side, and Assis,
Yep.
have a happy week.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.